Hey, good evening. It's 7:11, and this is my third video for today. S As I'm trying to catch up for you and keep you ahead of what you need to be kept ahead of as we come around to the back half of this course. And you can see that I have a little bit more vitality in my voice. In fact, I'm surprised because this is the third of the three videos I've been taping for the past hour plus, and I was half dead in the first two, but for some reason I've gotten the second wind, I suppose. Again, so the first video, well, let's work backwards. This particular video will be a continuation of the futuring skill sets I've been talking about. We did the other one maybe a week or two ago, and I'll come back and pull some of that together in this one. And then we're going to that will be this particular video that you're about to watch. And again, you don't have to watch this tonight. You probably won't because it's 7:12 and you don't know that it's up yet. And so over the next couple of days, I presume you'll be looking at this. But this again is the third video. The second one was we devoted to the collective mindset as we move through the book, and that particular one was devoted towards chapter 7, which is about design thinking. Again, with the idea of all this is going to come together to help you pull together the assignments. Now, speaking of assignments, that was the first video, and that video is very important for you to watch. Don't make an executive decision to not watch that video. Watch that video. You don't have to watch it first, but certainly watch that video, watch that video, watch that video. Because what it does is it doesn't complete, but it begins to clarify the remainder of the semester. One of the students asked that question a couple of days ago, and it was a valid question to ask. So this video lays out the expectations for the rest of the semester in terms of assignments, and I've changed some of the due dates. Also, when you go up into Canvas into the assignments section, you'll see that all of them are there as well. But the video does help you understand what the expectation is. A short part of that is that there's an assignment due at the end of the month, and that's a case study, and that's described pretty well in that particular video. And then the next one is November 20th, which is a million years from now, but that is a faculty memo that you need to pull together. And there's other premises as well there. That's in the first video. Watch the first video, watch the first video, watch the first video. This video is a continuation of a PowerPoint I started to show you a couple of weeks ago. I think I thought I was getting better at that point, and when in fact I was not. And it depends on the moment you ask me. Like right now, I feel pretty decent, but the rest of I slept half the day just because I didn't feel so decent. And the tests keep coming, and it's one test says X, and the other test says Y, and one doctor says, "Yeah, you have the African Mongolian disease," and another one says, "No, you have a cold." They never said I had a cold. And I'm smiling, but it's been interesting, and that's a polite way to put it. But through the medicine, one last thing I'll say about it, because my favorite topic is myself, is that the antibiotic they went up having to put an IV on me as a home IV, which my wife had to administer. My wife, the saint, that is the strongest antibiotic medicine knows. I never heard of it, but if that didn't work, they didn't know what was going to work. So thank heavens it did. At least I think it did. It didn't for now. Whether it's going to continue to didn't, I stay tuned on that. All right, enough said. So let's pull up the PowerPoint. Where are you, PowerPoint? You're not up. That's what comes down to. Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna go back to slide one just for a moment because that was a while back, I think, when I did some of these things. I'm gonna zippity doo-dah through some of this. I think I mentioned that this is old PowerPoint I did for about 40 Chinese Chinese administrators from Shanghai province who had come to the United States to look at so-called innovative practices. And folks at Stony Brook had me present my first book, Futures-Based Change Leadership. And it was a fun time. This slide series is 106 slides. They politely sat through it, never asked to leave the room or anything. It was, I guess, the way their kind of courtesy they extend to a professor, which kind of surprised me, but I did appreciate it. But the short story was, this is a very long PowerPoint. I see no need to take you through all of the PowerPoint once, and nor really in chunks. So what I'm doing is I'm moving things through, because my premise is to teach you an idea. You can call it a theory if you want. I guess it is that, but it's a bundle of ideas that are not typically part of school leadership programs. And I'm proud of the fact, in certain counts, I'm patting myself on my shoulder, I'm proud of myself in certain counts that I'm able to get my arms around a piece of it anyway to share with my students. When you come through this premise, and if you were to take any other of my courses, you're going to get more of this idea. I call it futuring. It's not, I didn't make that word up. Futurism is a word that really speaks to a group of individuals, futurists, who forecast the future. They are not astrologers. They are not psychics. They don't read your palm. None of those kinds of things. They look at what a person named Amy Webb called, they look at the signals out there and they figure out what the signals are saying. Not always correctly, but more often than not. So if you pay attention, if you watch the news at night, and Lonnie, I forgot his last name on CBS, tells you whether it's going to rain tomorrow, he's futuring for you. He's telling you the probability of whether it's going to be a nice day or a rainy day or something like that. That's futuring. I'm looking at the probabilities and trying to decide whether the probabilities and your preferabilities, your preferences, match up. When they don't, then you need to make adjustments for that. All right, so we've gone through some of this. I hope that you've used this premise. Really do hope that you've used this. And there will be a discussion question associated with tonight's presentation. When you come through this premise, you really need to have yourself understand where you sit in terms of how you view future. Have you ever thought about how you look at the future? Or it just happens? It's been already written in a big script up there in heaven, and and everyone knows that script is exactly what's going to be happening to you. Is it completely random? When you walk outside to get the garbage and have a tree fall on you, but yeah, this sort of thing. Or you're a Marty McFly type from Back to the Future, one of my favorite movies. Who gets to go back in time to change different things, which, by the way, that makes no sense when you look at it more carefully. I had a woman a couple years ago. I was in a class and I asked them how they viewed the future. And typically, there's a question that I didn't make up, but it's used fairly often, and it goes something like this, with some variations. If you could go back in time and find Adolf Hitler's grandfather, would you murder him in order to prevent World War II? And you can imagine the kind of conversation we get about something like that, even though it's just strictly science fiction. In this particular class, I had a woman from, I forget where she was, from South America. Well, I'd say Colombia, but I could be wrong. And she said she would not go back to kill Hitler's grandfather. She would go back to kill Christopher Columbus, because his deeds resulted in the Holocaust of the indigenous peoples in North and South America. I didn't expect that way. I didn't future for that idea. I can tell you that. And I have to tell you, that brought around a pretty strong reaction from folks. And that really goes to the fact of how we view the future. So the question then becomes, and I'm not going to read this slide back at you, is how we view the future and how others around you view the future, particularly in schools. And I think I said this a couple of weeks ago. I don't read faculty, so I don't read teachers and administrators, particularly teachers, as people who think they're empowered to change the future. And that's a wild idea if you think about it, because we would like to think that teachers think that they can change individual children's futures. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the futures that in the situations and circumstances that teachers are placed into, the schools they're in, the curriculum they have to teach, the leadership they have to contend with, the communities that support or don't support them, the amount of resources they have. They feel very disempowered and very passive about how they view the future, which is unfortunate, which goes back to this whole premise that we need to train school leaders, starting with you, especially in terms of E&L preferable futures, to take charge of that future rather than let the future just flat out happen. And so we went through this. I'm not going to go through all this again, but it was interesting to see, and there's a couple of words I want to just make sure you see again. There's that word emerging future. I urge you to watch that video out of Otto Scharmer. I mentioned him in the design thinking video I just did about collective mindset. And he talks about there's a future emerging. I'm in dangerous territory when I try this out on you, but this past the weekend we know that horrific acts have happened in Israel, an invasion of Israel, and horrific things on TV that just curdle your blood and sicken you if you're any kind of human being at all. And there are folks who have strong opinions about what should happen and what should not happen. And what they're really talking about is what kind of future I'm not laughing at that. What kind of future is emerging and whether they accept it or not. What kind of future they need to create. I'm talking more generally about adaptive or transformative. Do you mean to accept what is and maybe tinker with it? Clean up the environment a little bit so that you don't drink dirty water, but not necessarily try to change the water for 10, 15 years from now or 50 years from now? Or do you mean to transform it? To get people to come up with different ways to create water as a transformative idea. It really goes back to this premise. This is not an idea that I claim as my own. Richardson said that when it comes to the future, there are three kinds of people. Those who let it happen, those who make it happen, and those who wonder what happened. Which one are you? Which one is the staff you work with? Where do you sit on this? Where does your faculty sit with this? We can't go much farther than this until you figure that out. And let's skip some of this. You already saw some of this. I've already used this term emerging future. There is a future emerging that's very scary right now. So the emerging future is a future that 4 or 5 days ago, most folks hadn't considered. And yet the probability for that was always there. And we talked about the fact that there are three pieces to futures-based change leadership. One was collaboration. One was design thinking. I call it theory U on this graphic. And one was called systems thinking. And really, there's a fourth piece, and that would be culture. So I have to change this graphic. All circling around the idea of future. So the bottom line is, if you mean to write a plan for me and for yourself to change something in your school systems practices to meet the needs of E&L children and all children in your building, you really need to take a look at the school's ability to change. Whether it's got the muscles, the chops, the DNA, the strengths, the competencies to do that. that it's got all the systems pieces in place, that it knows what its culture is about, that it knows how to think creatively. Go back to the collective mindset book. Does know how to listen to each other, because it's all dependent on what I call type 1, 2, and 3 futuring strategies. In other words, the ability of your organization's cultural capacity to change depends on the extent to which it's able to recreate itself collaboratively. I don't know what you think. I think that's what I'm going to ask you. That's your question. What do you think? That's slides 18. Okay, it's in the video. I'm not going to give you the whole PowerPoint. I'll rephrase that for you later on so you can do something with that. Remember, your school is only as good as its extent to which it's systemically healthy. That its culture is aligned with itself and decisions are made from a futures-based point of view. And that's about what we mentioned a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, about the fact that you're not only a school, but you're also a learning organization, which we said was not the same thing by way of Peter Senge when we talk about an organization that can continue to recreate itself. Schools right now are pressed to recreate itself, with the changes that are coming at you faster than a speeding bullet as such. So an organization's capacity to change without systems, okay, I mean, the culture would be haphazard and misunderstood. Creative thinking would be stifled, and the quality of collaboration wouldn't exist. And that would be a tower falling down upon itself. I know I used this phrase, this piece the other day when we talked about a Mayan proverb that said, we did not put our ideas together, we put our purposes together. And we agreed, then we decided. Is that how it happens in your school? And that's your DQ. And we'll put this up tonight because I'm getting tired, but you'll see a discussion question about this tomorrow. On a scale of 1 to 10, or 1 to 5, with 5 meaning yeah all the time to 1 meaning never, what happens in your building? Why or why not? Tell us about it. Now, we talked about creativity in the collective mindset video, so I won't repeat all of that, but essentially here we're saying the same thing, that the culture must have embed design thinking into its practices. And if they don't do that, they can't future. They can't look at the probabilities. If they don't do that, their disciplines are shallow because they're not made to last, to be sustainable. They don't know how to commit to each other because they're not listening to each other. And it's anchored in the past. It's not thinking forward. And we're going to stop there. So that's slide 32. I'm trying not to overdo this. There's a lot of material here for you to think about. But the discussion question will be something about the extent to which you think that Mayan proverb. Where is that Mayan proverb again? Where are you? Well, I can't find it. Somebody find it for me. There we go. We'll go from there. Okay, I'm stopping this. I don't want to belabor you. Again, 3 videos to watch. They all tie together, especially number 2 and 3 in terms of the SUM, the total of everything you learn for this course. And then the first video is kind of a housekeeping business video that has a lot of important things for you to follow. So you can see I'm picking up speed again. I won't do this to you all the time, but I'm just trying to move you through. And I think I said in the first video, I know I owe you 1 million responses. And I'm almost ready to really get into those more clearly. So be patient with me on that. You've been so good and patient, really very kind to me. I appreciate that. Take care.